Did you know there's a man in Hong Kong who paid $1 billion ransom in cash for his kidnapped son, and then allegedly advised the kidnapper on how to invest the money and live an honest life? His family's net worth sits at $45 billion, but it's just one of the 8 richest Hong Kong dynasties we're breaking down today. And before we get into the list, here's one thing to keep in mind. The family sitting at number 1 built a multi-billion-dollar empire on a pot of accidentally overcooked soup. Let's dive in. Number 8. Joseph Tsai Family, the new guard of global tech and sports. We open with the one name on this list that doesn't fit the classic Hong Kong tycoon mold, and that's precisely why he's the right place to start. Joseph Tsai was born in Taiwan, educated at Yale, and spent his early career as a tax lawyer and private equity investor. In 1999, he walked away from a comfortable, well-compensated life to join a then-unknown Jack Ma in building something called Alibaba. His net worth today is $14.2 billion. You could argue he made the best career pivot in the history of career pivots. What Tsai brought to Alibaba wasn't vision. That was Ma's department. It was structure, legal rigor, financial credibility. The kind of institutional scaffolding that turns a promising idea into a company that can actually go public and operate at global scale. He's the second largest individual shareholder in Alibaba, and his stake in one of the world's most valuable tech companies is the foundation of everything else. But here's where his profile genuinely separates from every other name on this list. Tsai owns the Brooklyn Nets, the Barclays Center, and the New York Liberty. He is simultaneously a Hong Kong establishment figure, sitting on the International Advisory Council of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and a New York sports owner whose wife, Clara Wu Tsai, is one of the most active philanthropists in the American social justice space. The Joe and Clara Tsai Foundation channels serious capital into neuroscience research, human performance, and education. His lifestyle reads Silicon Valley instead Kowloon, low-profile Hong Kong residence, Yale lacrosse supporter, and the kind of billionaire who doesn't need a super yacht to feel the weight of his own net worth. In a list dominated by property dynasties and inherited conglomerates, Tsai is the clearest signal that Hong Kong's economic identity is quietly, irreversibly shifting. So, tech money opens the board. But the next family turned a fugitive conviction, a Boeing Dreamliner, and a $48 million diamond into one of the most extraordinary lifestyle stories in this city's history. Number 7. The Lau Family, the fugitive billionaire. Joseph Lau has a $14.3 billion fortune, a Macau prison sentence, and absolutely zero intention of serving it. And somehow, that's not even the most interesting thing about him. Lau built his reputation in the 1980s as a corporate raider, specializing in hostile takeovers of older, established Hong Kong companies with the kind of appetite that earned him the label enfant terrible of the era. His company, Chinese Estates, developed The One, which remains the tallest retail complex in Hong Kong. But in 2014, a Macau court convicted him of bribery and money laundering connected to a land deal and handed him a 5-year prison sentence. Here's the detail that stops people. He has never served a single day of it. Hong Kong and Macau don't have an extradition treaty. So Lau simply stayed in Hong Kong, conviction intact, freedom intact, net worth intact. He continues to operate, collect, and spend from the city as though the sentence exists in a parallel jurisdiction, which, technically, it does. And talking about spending, Lau owns one of the world's most significant private art collections, estimated at over $1 billion. Warhol, Gauguin, Basquiat. He was among the first private individuals to own a Boeing 787 Dreamliner jet. His wine cellar holds at least 10,000 bottles of Sirius Red. And his most famous purchases are diamonds, specifically, diamonds bought for his daughter Josephine. The Blue Moon of Josephine, acquired at auction for $48.4 million. The Star of Josephine, named for his daughter. That's a different category of parental affection. In recent years, failing health has prompted him to transfer 75% of his Chinese estates shares to his wife, Kim Chan, a former entertainment reporter. effectively restructuring the succession outside the traditional heir model. The family also took a significant hit on their investment in China Evergrande. Even at $14.3 billion, the complications don't stop. Now, from a fugitive billionaire to a family whose drama could fill 3 seasons of prestige television. And that's not an exaggeration. Number 6. The Kwok family. Resilience through tragedy. If you wanted to write a fictional drama about a Hong Kong dynasty that includes kidnappings, feuds, jail sentences, and a matriarch who removes her own son from the family trust, you'd be told the plot was too unrealistic. And yet, this is just the Kwok family's actual history. Sun Hung Kai Properties is one of the most powerful real estate companies in Asia. The International Commerce Center, Hong Kong's tallest skyscraper, the IFC Mall, APM, Newtown Plaza. The Kwok family built all of it, anchored by a massive family trust controlled by their matriarch, Kwong Siu-hing, Grandma Kwong, widow of founder Kwok Tak-sang. Combined family net worth, $17.5 billion. Now for the drama. In 1997, the eldest brother Walter Kwok was kidnapped by the same big spender gangster who targeted the Lee family's Victor. Walter was beaten and held in a wooden cage for 6 days. A ransom of 600 million Hong Kong dollars was paid. The psychological damage from that ordeal created a rift between Walter and his younger brothers, Thomas and Raymond, that never fully healed. Then in 2010, Grandma Kwong made a move that Hong Kong's business community still talks about. She removed Walter entirely as a beneficiary of the family trust, citing disagreements over management strategy and his relationship with a close female friend named Ida Tong. Quietly, completely, and with devastating finality. Control shifted to Thomas and Raymond. 2 years later, Thomas was arrested in a corruption scandal involving the former chief secretary of Hong Kong, Raphael Hui. He was eventually convicted of bribery, providing over $1 million in benefits, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. The company kept operating. The empire kept standing. Because underneath all the drama, Sun Hung Kai's land bank is so deeply woven into Hong Kong's transport infrastructure that it functions almost regardless of who is running it. The most powerful person in this dynasty has never held a corporate title. Grandma Kwong, from her position of quiet, absolute authority, has outlasted scandals, feuds, and convictions. That is a specific kind of power that no board seat can replicate. Family governance at its most extreme. The next entry is considerably quieter, but no less formidable, built on an empire that touches almost every corner of Hong Kong's daily infrastructure. Number 5. The Wu family. The shipping king's successors. Peter Wu didn't build the Wheelock Empire. He married into it, and then spent the next 4 decades making it considerably larger and more sophisticated than it was when he arrived. That's its own kind of talent. His father-in-law was Sir Y.K. Pao, the legendary shipping king who built one of the world's largest private shipping fleets. When Wu took over leadership of Wheelock & Company, he executed one of Hong Kong's most successful pivots, from shipping to luxury retail and real estate. Today, the family's portfolio includes Harbor City and Times Square, not the New York one, though the naming is deliberate, 2 of the most profitable shopping malls anywhere in the world. Their luxury retail arm, the Lane Crawford Joyce Group, is the definitive high-end retail operator in the city. Wu's brilliant financial mind, a description that follows him consistently through business coverage, was first demonstrated by applying American retailing principles to the Hong Kong luxury market before most of his peers recognized the opportunity. He also served as chairman of the Hospital Authority and the Trade Development Council, and ran for chief executive of Hong Kong in 1996. The man's civic footprint is as substantial as his commercial one. In 2020, he took Wheelock private in a $12 billion deal, removing the company from public markets and eliminating the pressure of quarterly earnings cycles entirely. A long-term move, made by someone who has always thought in long-term terms. His son Douglas now serves as chairman, and made headlines in early 2025 by purchasing a luxury apartment in Repulse Bay for 59.8 million Hong Kong dollars. Widely read as a deliberate public signal of confidence in Hong Kong's recovering property market. In this city, how a billionaire spends their money is always a message. Douglas knew exactly what he was saying. Real estate royalty with a long game. But the next family on this list didn't build their wealth on property at all. They built it on sauce. And the origin story is genuinely one of the best accidents in business history. Number 4. The Lee family. The liquid gold of the sauce empire. In 1888, a chef named Kum Kee was cooking oyster broth on the coast of Guangdong province. He got distracted. The broth overcooked. What he found in the pot was a thick, intensely flavored paste that he'd never seen before. He tasted it. And instead of throwing it away, he bottled it and sold it. That accident, that single moment of overcooked broth, is the origin of Kum Kee, and by extension, a $17.6 billion family fortune. The world's first oyster sauce. Still the company's flagship product. Still produced, along with over 300 other sauces and condiments, and supplied to 100 countries. Think about the last time you cooked anything remotely Asian-inspired at home. There's a reasonable chance the Lee family was involved. Under the third-generation patriarch Lee Man-tat, the family diversified into traditional Chinese medicine through the Infinitus brand, which became a dominant player in the mainland health products market. They also purchased the walkie-talkie skyscraper in London for £1.3 billion, a building so distinctive it has its own nickname, and a documented history of melting the cars parked beneath it due to its curved glass facade. The Lees bought it anyway, which tells you something about their appetite for an interesting asset. The family governance structure is, by any measure, extraordinary. After a series of feuds in the 1970s and 80s, Lee Man-tat established a formal family council with a written constitution governing how heirs engage with the business. There's a happiness index for family members. Heirs must work 3 years outside the company before joining it. And when the family council reaches a deadlock on a business decision, they throw dice. Literally. A project only needs a 66 to 77% chance of success to get approved. The 6677 principle. Momentum over perfection. They're now in the 6th generation of family management, operating under a stated 1,000-year business vision. You heard it right. 1,000 years. And as far as business plans go, this is the most ambitious one on this list. But now, we move from a 1,000-year vision to a family navigating one of the most dramatic corporate transitions Hong Kong has seen in years. Number 3. The Cheng family. Bullion, brands, and the fall of a scion. The Chung family sits at $26.1 billion, and 2026 has been a year of 2 very different stories running simultaneously inside the same dynasty. On one side, Chow Tai Fook Jewelry Group, one of the largest jewelry retailers on Earth, whose stock nearly doubled as gold prices hit record highs. The family's fortune expanded by $6.6 billion in a single year, almost entirely because of bullion. Henry Cheng, the patriarch, built this hedge deliberately, using the jewelry business as liquid insurance against the inevitable volatility of the real estate cycle. It's paid off comprehensively. On the other side, New World Development, the family's property arm, recorded its first net loss in 20 years. Net debt reached 129.5 billion Hong Kong dollars. The mainland expansion that looked bold in a rising market looked considerably different in a contracting one. And at the center of that contraction was Adrian Cheng, the 3rd-generation heir who was groomed for the top job and built the K11 brand of museum retail malls around his art commerce philosophy. K11 was genuinely innovative, threading cultural programming through commercial retail spaces in a way that hadn't really been done at scale. But the debt accumulated under his tenure, and the losses became impossible to absorb quietly. In late 2024 and into 2025, Adrian resigned from all key positions in the family business. Henry Cheng brought in an outside CEO, Ma Xiaoxiang, and publicly stated that succession in this family would now be determined by virtue and talent, not hereditary right. He is still, by his own admission, observing the remaining candidates. That public reframing, from a patriarch openly saying that blood alone doesn't qualify you for the throne, is a significant cultural moment for Hong Kong's dynastic business culture. The Chengs are still 3rd on this list. The jewelry business is performing extraordinarily, But the question of who leads the next chapter remains genuinely open. Sonia Cheng, Henry's daughter, has meanwhile built Rosewood Hotels into a globally recognized luxury lifestyle brand. While the property arm restructures, Rosewood keeps the family's hospitality flag flying at the very top of the market. Sometimes the sibling you weren't watching ends up carrying the most weight. But our next family's transition came with considerably more grief attached, and a $3.3 billion building shaped like a flower. Number 2. The Lee family. Henderson Land and the Guardians of Concrete Gold. Lee Ka-shing built Henderson Land Development from scratch and spent 5 decades turning it into one of the most powerful property conglomerates in Asia. When he passed away in March 2025 at the age of 97, he left behind a $34.9 billion fortune, 2 sons, and a company facing the most significant moment of its generational transition. Peter Lee Ka-kit and Martin Lee Ka-shing now serve as co-chairmen, splitting the inheritance trust 50-50. And the strategic direction they're taking it in is a marked departure from what their father built. Lee Ka-shing was a property man. Residential towers, public utilities, land accumulation. His sons are betting on green technology. Peter Lee, a devout Buddhist, has scaled back the family's mainland property land bank by 80% over the last decade and is repositioning Towngas, the family's utility arm, in which they hold a 42% stake, as a key driver of China's carbon neutrality goals. EV charging infrastructure. Energy storage systems. A utility company pivoting toward the climate transition rather than waiting for it. The family also controls a 42% stake in Towngas, supplying gas across Hong Kong and increasingly across mainland China. The kind of recurring, essential utility revenue that makes property cycles feel almost irrelevant by comparison. Their most visible recent statement is the Henderson, a $3.3 billion office tower launched in 2024, designed in the shape of a bauhinia bud, Hong Kong's civic flower. The building is architecturally extraordinary, but the detail that captures attention is the engineering inside it. Specialized hoisting points built into the structure allow luxury auction houses like Christie's to lift multi-million-dollar artworks directly from street level into their high-rise galleries. The building was designed around the specific operational needs of its most prestigious tenants. That's not just architecture. That's a philosophy about what prime real estate should do for the people inside it. Martin Lee, the younger son, maintains a visible social presence, and his marriage to former actress Kathy Chui keeps the family in Hong Kong's cultural conversation alongside the boardroom one. At $34.9 billion with a utility empire, a landmark skyscraper, and a generational green bet in motion, the Lees are exactly where you'd expect the second wealthiest family in Hong Kong to be. Operating quietly, at enormous scale, with a very long horizon in view. But while the second place was held by a dynasty, thinking in decades, let's see how our number 1 dynasty is thinking in centuries. And they've been doing it since before Hong Kong was Hong Kong. Number 1, the Lai family. The architects of global infrastructure, $45.1 billion. Operations in over 50 countries, 300,000 employees. Roughly 15% of the world's container trade flowing through ports that this family controls. And at the center of it all, a 97-year-old man who still shows up wearing a Seiko watch that costs less than most people's monthly phone bill. Lee Ka-shing is the most studied, most quoted, most mythologized business figure Hong Kong has ever produced. And the mythology is earned. Born in 1928, he fled to Hong Kong in 1940 to escape the Japanese invasion of mainland China. His father died of tuberculosis shortly after. Lee left school at 15 and worked 16-hour days in a plastics factory. By 1950, he had founded Chung Kong Industries, making high-quality plastic flowers. A product that sounds trivial until you understand he identified an export market gap and dominated it. The nickname Superman followed naturally. His most consequential move came during the 1967 riots, when Hong Kong was genuinely destabilized and property values were collapsing as residents fled. Lee Ka-shing bought, aggressively, methodically, and at distressed prices across the city. His read was that the crisis was temporary and the land was permanent. He was right in a way that compounded for the next 5 decades and produced the largest private fortune in Hong Kong's history. The family's holding structure, CK Hutchison Holdings and CK Asset Holdings, generates recurring cash flows from European telecommunications through the Three Mobile Network, UK Water, and gas utilities through Power Assets Holdings, the A.S. Watson Retail Group with over 15,000 stores, including Superdrug and Watsons globally, and a port empire that underpins international trade at a scale most governments can't match. Then there's the kidnapping. In 1996, Victor Lee, the eldest son, now chairman of the family's flagship businesses, was abducted by the gangster Chung Tse-kung, known as Big Spender. The ransom demanded was 1.038 billion Hong Kong dollars. Li Ka-shing paid it in cash, reportedly without notifying the police. The story that has followed this event, that he allegedly advised the kidnapper on how to invest the money and live honestly, may be apocryphal, but it has survived because it perfectly captures the Li patriarch's composure. Big Spender was eventually captured and executed on the mainland. Victor's management style, shaped in part by that experience, is conservative and meticulous. His younger brother Richard, the small Superman, operates independently through Pacific Century Group, running PCCW Telecommunications and FWD Insurance at a personal net worth of $6.8 billion. The clean split between the brothers, formalized when Li Ka-shing stepped back in 2018, is widely regarded as one of the most effectively managed billionaire succession processes in Asian business history. In 2019, when Hong Kong's protests fractured the city's social fabric, Li Ka-shing donated 1 billion Hong Kong dollars to support struggling small businesses, and then took quiet but pointed criticism from mainland state media, which had spent years blaming property tycoons like him for the city's housing crisis. It was a moment that illustrated his position precisely. Powerful enough to act independently, too prominent to avoid scrutiny from any direction. The Li family is number one on this list, not just because of the size of the fortune. It's because of what they represent. A dynasty that was built from absolute zero, through genuine hardship, across nearly a century, and then structured with enough discipline and foresight that it will almost certainly outlast the generation that built it. That is a specific kind of achievement. And in Hong Kong, nobody has done it at this scale. So here we are, 8 families with 8 different blueprints of how a place like Hong Kong can be owned. Which one of these stories fascinated you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you're not subscribed to Global Status yet, you already know what to do, because we drop such interesting wealth stories every day. See you in the next one.